Hi, it's Will from StormTheCastle.com, and this is part 3 of the Make a World War II diorama. So what we have here is the diorama. The plaster shell is dried, it's ready to go, and now what I've done is I've started to lay out my various parts, my models and figures and stuff like that on the terrain to get a sense for how I want them laid out. Now I had sketches that show the general idea of what I wanted, but now I'm really starting to figure it out on where everything is going to go. So you might want to do that. Take your stuff, move it around, look for good orientations and good presentation, what's going to really look good, depending on the parts you have, the different models and figures. So this one's pretty close to what I want to do, and I wanted to show you a couple of things. To get these set up on the terrain, I'm going to actually do a little bit, for some of them I'm going to do a little bit of cutting. I'm going to actually cut some of the plaster, like this here. I will cut and then place it in and then glue it into place. And for some I may even use a little bit of material, either plaster Paris or something called flex paste, that I like to actually build it up. So I'm going to modify the terrain a little bit in different spots to get it exactly the way I want it. So move the pieces around, have some fun with that, try to get pleasing arrangement and figure out where all your figures and everything's going to go before you start doing the actual terrain. And the important thing here is, as you can see, I'm going to have a road here. So that's actually going to be one color, and I'm going to have some buildings here, so that'll be another color. This will be sand colored around where the anti-tank gun is and the foxholes and stuff like that. And this will be probably a gray and a sand kind of color around where the ruined buildings are. So what I have to do now is, once I've got all those various areas figured out, I will paint in a base coat of color. So, and I'll show you that I've got my colors here. I'll paint in the various base coats, and all that is something to be underneath all your terrain textures. Like for instance, if I'm going to be putting grass here, I want to paint green under that, so that that green shows through. If anything shows through, it'll be a little bit of green underneath the terrain texture. So it makes a big difference in how the diorama will look. So, now you do your details, lay out your figures, get them all the way you want them, and get your arrangement in a way that looks good, and then mark this all up so you know how to paint it, the different base colors, and then go ahead and paint the base colors, and I will show you that when I'm done painting it. I'm using a wide variety of colors here. I'm using, well, not actually a wide variety, half a dozen different colors. This is a tan undercoat. It's like kind of like a light brown. That'll be the road. And this is a mixture of some brown and some gray here. This is where the foxholes are and whatnot. So that's kind of dirt. Make sure that you do inside your foxholes too. You're going to be doing some greens and some light greens. This is going to be a light green or a regular green, and as we get close to the forest here, I'm going to be doing a darker green, because that'll give us a nice darker look. And I'm also going to do a dab of green here, because there's going to be a few plants there, maybe some bushes or something. Here and there's going to be a few different bushes. The important thing here is kind of lay out the base colors. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a base coating, but in the way that your diorama is going to be, your eventual terrain is going to look like. See, so there's some grass here that's going to come in here, little grassy area. Some grass in front of the foxholes, the trenches, and a little bit. Blend your colors, because areas kind of blend into each other, and one of the most important things is to make sure you cover pretty much all of the white plaster. That ruins the effect. If you see the white plaster through the terrain, it kind of ruins the effect of the diorama. You're trying to suspend reality, and if you see plaster, it's not really a big suspension of reality. And over here I'm going to put a stone here. The terrain kind of lends itself to a big stone right there. Break up that. I will break up that grassy area a little bit. Maybe I'll put another stone. A couple of little stones here, just to kind of break up the grass. So have fun with that, you know, paint up all your base paint. And this is almost done. One thing, when you're doing a road like this, a dirt road, there's oftentimes a dirt road, and you probably noticed it, has this like line through the middle of a different colored grass. You know, that's because the tracks or the treads don't wear on that too much. So put yourself a base line, kind of intermittent base line in the middle of that path there, like that. Wanted to show you something you might have noticed as I was doing this is I have the forest is going to be over here with more trees, and it's darker. So I started out with a raw green color and did a little bit of painting, and then I added a little bit of white to it so it lightens it up, and I continued painting and added a little bit more white and continued painting. So the overall effect is kind of like a very gentle changing from dark green to a light green this way, and that's going to look really good. You don't want an all very uniform color that looks artificial. So when you vary the color like that, and also you can vary the color a little bit when it comes to the slopes. The slopes here, the darker parts, the slopes would be a little bit darker, maybe at the bottom of the slope, and the high points where the sunlight would be shining off them would be a little bit lighter. See how I got that? So think about that and experiment a little bit with it. And this all looks really good. I'm really happy with how this is coming out. This is going to look really nice once I start getting the terrain on there. I finished all the base painting, and I've rearranged all my various small items on the map, on the diorama. And next I'm going to start securing a lot of this stuff down. Now at this point I'm not going to do the tanks, well the anti-tank gun, any of that kind of stuff. That will go later. That's almost the last step. What I am going to do is some of the major structures here before we do the terrain. I'm going to put those major structures down, like the sandbags and the various wall pieces. And what I'm going to use is a product called Flex Paste. I like Flex Paste because it's very flexible and very forgiving when it comes to the uneven terrain. But you don't have to use Flex Paste. You can just use some kind of a glue to secure it down. This is almost like the texture of melted marshmallows, and that will paste it down. So what I'll do is I'll paste these down in position, and then once it dries I will go over it again and repaint the base painting. Now if you can't, like for instance, let me show you. Over here, this building is crooked because the terrain is crooked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a small slot in there so it'll sit correctly, and then I'll paste it in. So do that. You know, you can cut your terrain a little bit, not a whole lot. You might want to even modify the structure there. But if you need to do some cutting, a little bit of the terrain, cut away a little bit so things sit straight, particularly buildings, you want them to sit up very nice and straight. So once all of that, I'm going to paste all of these major things down, minus the equipment. And then once it dries, I will repaint to cover up the Flex Paste. And I'll show you that. Now it's time to let that paste dry. And once that paste is all dried up, I will retouch up the paint and redo those little parts of paint, and then we will be ready to spread the terrain materials onto the diorama. Okay, this part of the tutorial is done. I finished up the base painting, all the touch-up work. I covered up, repainted all over all the paste, all the Flex Paste, and we're ready to move on to the next part of the tutorial where I will apply the terrain textures. Thanks for watching. Lots more stuff on my website, www.stormthecastle.com.